So tell us, how did you guys meet?
Well, we, I was born over in Tompanish, as you probably know, and we had a dairy, and World War II started, and milk did not increase in value or price, but feed went out of sight, and it put us in a bad place, and finally we had to leave the dairy business, and my folks moved to Seattle, West Seattle, because they knew somebody on Alki Avenue.
I'm sorry.
And we found an apartment right next to them, and then found the West Side Presbyterian Church, which was kind of traditional in our family. And so we went to West Side Press. My dad and I decided we wanted to be in the choir. So we joined the choir, and we were sitting up there one day, and well, it's up to you now. I was sitting in a choir.
Well, my version.
The real version.
Okay.
I was at choir practice, and
I wasn't there. I don't know why.
you walked in and sat by my sister Shirley. And I saw him and sort of love at first sight. I was 16. And I said to myself, she gets all the good-looking guys. I'm going to get this one for me.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you did too.
Anyway, went to West Seattle High School, and she and I became good friends. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And then I went into the service and was in the Air Force, Air Corps, in the cadet program. And the war ended before I had a chance to get much flight training. But anyway, I got enough.
That wasn't a bad thing.
No.
You don't like airplanes.
No. We want you shot out of the air.
Right. So came home and didn't know what to do because the war ended and I had no plans beyond that. A buddy of mine was going to be an architect, and he knew what he was going to do. So I hooked up with him and went with him out to University of Washington to, he was going to sign up, and met a counselor. And the counselor looked at me, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, sign up and we'll get you started. So I started my college career in general studies. And
We were paid for by the U.S.
GI
government.
Bill. Yeah, the GI Bill.
So you went from being a private to a general.
Yeah, general studies. Primarily, and then I didn't have a foreign language. And they required a foreign language. So what are you going to do? You move over to economics and business because they didn't require it. And I got a degree in economics and business. Graduated in '49, and then we got married
A week
a
after.
week after I graduated from the University of Washington.
We went together 7 years.
Wow. You waited for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a great event at Westside. We were the second people to get married in the remodel or the new church. Basket beat me out. I'll never forgive him for that. We wanted to be first.
So, Grandma Joy, what were you doing while you was in school?
She
I
was-
went to business college, Griffin Murphy Business College.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to type about 55 words a minute, and how to use a comptometer. You know what that is?
No.
Put the numbers in it. It's a foretaste of a computer.
Well, 55 words on a typewriter, that's pretty fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially those typewriters.
Well, yeah, because they get jammed, right? And you go faster, you get to get jammed.
And then I got a job at Puget Sound News, and I did the invoices for all the salesmen and mailed them out, and then they sent their money to the company. That place isn't there anymore. It was down by the Space Needle. And then I got tired of that job. It was a lot of employment.
So after you married, where did you settle down for a home? Did you live in West Seattle?
Now, before we got that, I had to say that in all of West Side, all the girls there, she was the prettiest one, so that's why.
That's the only reason.
Anyway, that was important. So then we got married in the church,
Yes.
and our honeymoon was down in Carmel, California. And we went down there, and coming back, we went back through Sacramento, and they had a heat wave, and it scored the bearings on my car.
What were you driving?
39 Dodge. Here's a picture of all I have a kind of reputation of liking cars. And if anybody's interested in what we had, here's a picture of Joy and our first V8 39 Ford.
All his cars are in there.
Also, we like boats.
I think he had wedding photos in there too. He had pictures of all his boats and all stuff.
And airplane. Had a great life. Oh yeah.
Hey, here's Bob.
I was a partnership in it.
Tell him what
Anyway.
what happened at Klamath Falls when you were on your honeymoon.
Yeah, well, that was a disaster. We actually, it was a meeting of which I'll tell you more about, of the National Office Products
No,
Association.
this is on our
On your
honeymoon.
honeymoon.
What happened
Well,
at
we
Klamath
went-
Falls?
You had to get your
Oh yeah, we stopped on our way down to California, to Carmel, at Klamath Falls. And I went in to get a room, and the guy in the motel wouldn't give it to me. I said, why not? Well, we don't allow people that aren't married here. So I had to go back to the car and get our marriage license, show him that we were married, and that it was okay. I guess I didn't look like I was a married kid.
Too young. How old were you?
I don't know,
That was on their honeymoon.
Yeah.
24.
20.
about 24, yeah. Looked young.
Yeah.
Still look young.
So anyway, we first house we had was that the one on the alley, the shack.
No, Mrs. Bowe's house. We
I
had
thought that was
our,
second.
our first house was all furnished.
Okay.
Yeah, and it my one of my first meals there, I was gonna cook a pot roast, and when I got married, I knew how to boil an egg. You know, I couldn't cook, and
Her mother never taught her.
so
to
I
cook.
lifted the cover off the pot roast to check on it, and the steam came up and burned my hand. I didn't know. Anyway, that was one of the things that happened there. Then we went to,
We had to save money because
yeah,
we couldn't afford that house anymore.
we were paying $65 a month for a furnished house.
That's how much we pay for internet.
Right.
So we moved to a smaller house, unfurnished, for $35 a month.
There was a shack on
It
the
was-
on the alley.
Yeah. But
Kind of
it
a
had
mother-in-law
an
shack.
apple box for a table. It had a rug, and it wasn't very well built. And
For an extra $10, I got a garage.
Hey, wise
That
investment.
was important.
that winter it snowed, and the snow came in through the window and onto the floor. We woke up with snow in our bedroom.
It was a great house.
We had a lot of fun.
Anyway, we went on, bought a house, small house, 2-bedroom, on Erskine Way, which is about 6 blocks from the junction, if you know where that is.
And that's where Bob and Patty were going. No, Bob and I'm used to saying Bob and Patty.
is this?
Bob and
Yeah.
Gwen.
The truth comes out.
They have the same birthday. anyway.
Exactly.
I'm twins.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, we thought at that time, when we had an opportunity to buy in a minor interest in the company that I was working for. Well, I gotta go back and tell them why I went there, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was working, first of all, when I first got out of school, to Union Oil Company, and I was working in a service station. They put you in different aspects of the company so that you learn what's going on. I had my eye on being a marketing director, but that was a 2-year program. You start off and spend first 6 months working in a service station. I was working on the corner of 45th and University Way on a night shift, and it was cold in the winter, February. Anyway, decided that that wasn't a very good future for what I was looking for. So my neighbor, where my folks lived, was general manager of Transcontinental Freight Bureau. That was had offices in Union Station. I had minored in transportation in thinking that I might someday become a what do they call it? Anyway, you plead cases before the Interstate Commerce Commission and get your freight rates and that type of thing adjusted. And you join with others like Sears and Pennies and that to get the lowest freight rates on what you're going to sell. So anyway, working there, but I couldn't see any future there because everybody there was on a, what do you call it, priority of
Seniority?
seniority, yeah. And it took forever to get a decent job. So I gave up on that. In the meantime, we had been attending Youth for Christ rally in downtown Seattle.
The Moore Theater, what's it?
Maybe, yeah. Anyway, it was on 2nd and Virginia. There was still a theater there, I think. Anyway, they had the guys running Youth for Christ, and one of them was Hilding Halverson, who mentioned what he was doing, and that he was a member of the Seattle Rotary Club. A buddy of mine who graduated with me said that if you can get on a committee of Rotary Club as a veteran, they would introduce you to the club. Well, the club at that time has about 500 members, business and professional people of Seattle, and you'd often get a good opportunity of a job. So I walked up, I knew where he was, went in, talked to him. He put me in touch with the guy in charge of that program, and they had a long list of people who wanted to be on that, obviously. Well, time went by and he had an opportunity to expand his sales force, and he remembered me, but he didn't remember where I lived. Well, he knew I went to Westside Press, but didn't know my name, forgot my name. But he called the church, described me to the church secretary. Church secretary decided as Mrs. Hamilton, that must be me that he was talking about. Called me up, said, call Mr. Halverson. He would like to interview you. In the meantime, I talked to an insurance company and decided to go with them to get out of the railroad problem. And I made a decision to meet with the president of the insurance company that on Tuesday at noon for lunch to make my final decision. Hilding said, no, on your way down there, stop in and talk to me. Went in, he was a great salesman. Convinced me not to go into the church business, but go into the furniture business, which was like this. something tangible that I could make a good career of. He convinced me to say no to the insurance company and started my career at Bank and Office Interiors. So that was kind of interesting how that all worked out. Anyway, then back to houses. We built a house on 53rd Southwest. First house, it was contemporary, post and glass, great
Post and
view,
beam.
great view on the side of a hill. Anyway, finally, I think that's where you guys had bedrooms in the basement, right?
Yeah.
And you always wanted your walls painted black. I don't know why.
Isn't that funny? He
Anyway,
didn't get it.
It was the 60s.
But that's where Matt and David were born, in that house.
thought we needed a little bigger house, so I found one down on Beach Drive. And so we sold that house that we built and moved down to Beach Drive. And that needed a lot of help.
It was
Especially
dated.
the kitchen and everything. It
was
was
a pink
original. It was built in
kitchen.
1929.
Pink tile.
Yeah. So after living there and finding that we needed a new roof, a new furnace where Bob had his room.
Bob had a fireplace in his bedroom.
Outside entrance.
That sounds dangerous.
It was a great
Outside
house,
entrance
an
doesn't-
English Tudor, right on the beach, 110 feet of waterfront. It was great.
And tell him how much it just sold for.
Well, I paid when I bought it. This again was bought what year was that? What'd you guess?
1968.
I was in ninth grade.
Okay, when was that? Anyway, we decided that it was going to cost too much to repair the house because it was so big and needed so much, new kitchen and all that. So we sold it, and I paid $78,000 for it and sold it for $94,000. Thought I really made out well. Well, we looked up what it's worth today. It is $4.5 million.
Yeah. Easily.
And they don't have 110 feet of waterfront anymore. They built another house next to it, so it was about 50 or 60 feet.
Wow.
But still,
It's an English tutor.
yeah, it was a beautiful place.
There's a picture of it.
So then we moved up on, there's a picture of the Corvette in front of the house.
No.
Corvette's another story.
Oh, with the house.
Anyway, decided for the kids' sake and need a more contemporary house, so we bought a Rambler up on Sunset with a swimming pool.
He'd always go house shopping and then show it to me afterwards.
Guess what, honey? We're gonna move.
Oh, great. Not again.
Right. So we moved up there and had a lot of great parties. And the swimming pool was for the kids, and it just worked out very well for us.
Yeah, at one point, didn't you sell a house so you could buy the business that everybody thought you guys were?
Yeah, that's the one on Erskine Way.
Yeah.
I bought in a minority position on it. Eventually, I bought control of the company, and that was.
But you risked a lot to do that, didn't you?
Oh, that didn't bother me.
It bothered her.
Risk was nothing. Shoot. That's just kind of went with the way it was. So, what happened after that?
You're now on the house on Sunset.
Right.
You just sold it.
And a very active elder at Westside Presbyterian Church. And if you ever go there, you'll find Howell Auditorium. And Howell Auditorium was named for my dad, who was Sunday school superintendent and had Sunday school that would run from 800 to 1,000 kids every Sunday. And the reason that happened is that he and my mom, whenever a kid was missing, would go to the teacher find out what the teacher would find out what was wrong with the kid, and if it was a problem they could correct, they would do so, but invited them to come back, and they did. And or if the teacher couldn't make it, my mother and dad would go and visit the family, and this created interest in the Sunday school, and had good teachers, good training, good literature, all that. Anyway, that's kind of our mark on West Side Presbyterian, my father's.
And Bob's name is on a plaque,
So is Matt's?
and Matt's and David's.
Well, that was another story. They're all in Scouts,
They're all Eagles.
but they couldn't get a driver's license until they became Eagle Scout. That was a requirement.
Except for me.
Gwen got off easy.
He was always.
Anyway,
I just couldn't drive the cars.
got very involved in the business and the business community. And when I became sales manager of the company, I had to get a secretary because we were expanding our sales force. And so I hired Sarah Van Jepson, later to become Sarah Coleman. And Sarah Jepson, her father had helped Billy Graham make a decision to go into evangelism. He was involved in Christian Men's National Organization, of which Billy was involved as well. And Billy and Cliff Barrows had stayed at Jepson's place on Magnolia when they made that decision to go into evangelism. And because of that, I had that connection with the Graham organization. And I got involved in the subcommittee of the executive committee that brought the World's Fair to Seattle in 1962. And I thought it'd be really great to open that fair with a Billy Graham rally, a one-day rally. Called it, put it all together, and Billy was the first event in the 1962 Billy Graham, or the World's Fair. And that led to getting involved in politics. They had a group.
Don't forget, he came to our house.
Right, forgot that.
Yeah.
But that wasn't until 72.
Yeah, that was
76.
later.
That was
Oh.
76.
Okay. Thanks for reminding me. I got it here, right there. Okay. Anyway, the Republican Party needed funding, and so they had a group of young guys that would go out and knock on potential givers, ask for pledges, and they came to my boss then, Hildy Dalverson, said, we need you or somebody to represent us to go out and raise money. They picked me, and so I started out, didn't want to do it, hate to ask for money, but had to get it done, so I set aside a couple of days, took the list, went out, made my quota, and I was the first one to do that. So that got me up on the leadership of the finance, young Republican men finance committee. Because of that, involved in that, then in 62, right after that, they had a Republican convention, and I became county chairman of the Republican Party.
That was 1964.
That was when the convention was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you got back up.
Oh, okay. All
Because
right.
I went as a delegate to the Republican convention in San Francisco, the Cow Palace. And that's when Goldwater ran.
Yeah, that was in 64 because David was born then.
So
I know
below
that.
Grandpa's garage is a big Barry Goldwater button.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's always guiding us in the garage.
And I forgot to bring it, but I do have a picture with Goldwater. But as you know, he took a big beating from LJ.
LBJ.
Huh?
LBJ.
LBJ, yeah.
I'm related to
Lyndon?
him.
Lyndon Johnson. Anyway, So we
President to be related to. Not well liked.
always felt that I had an opportunity to be, as a Christian, to share Jesus with the business community. And nobody was doing that very much along that line. So I thought, well, we were at that time in the early 70s building the Kingdom. And I thought, wow, it would be great to have a crusade in the Kingdom when it first opened up. Well, it turned out we contacted Billy and the group, and they were really interested because Seattle had less than 2% of the people were identified with any kind of a church. And so, and it still continues. But anyway, so we had that opportunity, and we were the first non-athletic event in the Kingdom. And we had about 50,000 people a night there for 1 week. And all kinds of guys were saved. Even 10 years afterwards, people would come up and thank me for being, nobody wanted to be chairman, so, I'll do it. And became chairman of that group that brought him there. And the end result was a lot of people found the Lord in the community. Anyway. And then after that, after I sold the business and retired, then I got involved with helping a handicap organization, and there was a quadriplegic, did I say that right?
Yep.
Young man who was very able in the beginning of electronics and computers, and he became a friend of the son of Mao, the premier of China, who was also handicapped. And because of that, they brought a Chinese exhibit to this country, and the group that was involved in that asked me to be president of that effort. And we brought the Chinese exhibit here to Seattle Center, put on the exhibit, and they had from Tiananmen, what did they call that? The soldiers from,
Yeah.
Terracotta.
Terracotta
Warriors.
Warriors.
yeah. You familiar with that? On China?
Yeah, he has one in his
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've got one of the horses that they had. Anyway, model of it. We traveled to Minneapolis and to Columbus, Ohio. We was going to move that exhibit onto those other cities. And then the Tiananmen Square in Beijing happened, the students' uprising against the army. And because of that, the Chinese government called the exhibit back, and we had to return it back to China. But it was a great experience, especially with meeting the son of Mao, premier of China. Anyway, those were great days. Along with this, I got involved in 2 organizations. The Seattle Rotary, which when I became president of that, and we had about 900 members of the business and professional community management. And they always sent the incoming president to the international meeting. First, every other week or every other year, they would alternate between being in the U.S. and outside the U.S. We were fortunate that we were in line to go to the international meeting, which is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so the Rotary Club paid for our trip, and we went down through Lima, Peru, went up to Machu Picchu, you've heard of that? Went on to Rio de Janeiro, and Sao Paulo, of course, where the international convention was. I went from down
We
here
saw
to
Mother
that.
Teresa
Yeah,
speak.
I'm coming to that, Joy. Went from here to the house from Mother Teresa. She was the main speaker at that meeting. That was kind of exciting. And we went on to, where did we go after that? Uruguay and Buenos Aires, Argentina. And we came home. And then I got involved in our National Office Products Association. And they paid for the executive committee. When you became president, you got to pick where you wanted to have the executive committee meeting. So we got to go to some other exotic places, like Bermuda. Went there twice, once with Steelcase, once with an open group. Went to Malaga, Spain, is that how I say it?
Malaga.
Malaga. Then on to Casablanca, Morocco. Went to Mexico City, Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan. And then we had a trip to Paris, which we took our daughter Gwen.
It's so nice to have you without my brothers.
We had a great time.
She was
And then we went to Paris at another time and went to Vienna, London twice, Munich, picked up a new Mercedes in 1980 from Mercedes and drove through Europe. Ended up in,
Was that the bamboo cream one?
no, excuse me. I bought that one to haul Billy Graham around during the crusade. Very important. Justification and rationalization. Anyway, Steelcase treated us to, if you sold 3 carloads of furniture a year, you got a free trip. So we got trips to Maui, and we got one to Sardinia, which is right off of Rome. That was another trip.
In
to-
Sardinia, they bathe nude.
Yeah. Europe.
I wasn't going to say that.
Do that in France too.
And Spain. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, we
But anyway, we went to Japan and visited Matthew and Elizabeth in Japan. They were over there.
thank you. Well, that was the tail end of the trip of a business of National Office Products who wanted to do international relations. We went to Beijing first,
Oh, yeah.
and then went to Hong Kong, Shanghai, ended up in Tokyo, and visited Matt and Liz on the way back. That was great trip.
And when we were in Europe, we met David. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
traveling, backpacking through Europe, living on the beach in Greece.
He got
Shut
chased
up.
off the beach because they weren't supposed to
by
sleep on the
policemen.
beach where he was.
So we met him. What city was it? Copenhagen?
Copenhagen, yeah.
And
Treated him to a big dinner,
Yeah,
one of the
treated
best
him.
restaurants. He wasn't used to that rich food.
Oh no.
he walked a block and a half and threw it all.
Oh.
So
He stayed with us there while we were there.
they put a bed in our room for him to sleep in. And then he left the next day. He was going up to Norway. This man hired him to model some clothing.
Ski outfit in Norway.
He
Can you
had
imagine
some
that?
fabulous.
And he stumbled into more stuff.
That's David.
Yeah, some fabulous clothes.
Anyway, on our 60th wedding anniversary, we took a trip to on the Danube and went to Budapest and took the Viking cruise back to Amsterdam. That was a 10-day trip, I think. Well, unfortunately, they had a massive heat wave that melted the glaciers that caused the Danube to overflow or to go at very high level. And the boats we were on couldn't get under the bridges. So we had to bus around after they parked the boat, and we take a bus to go and see the country. That was kind of interesting. Anyway, we ended up in Amsterdam and came home, I guess. Right? Anyway, after that,
No,
what?
you forgot our trip to Chicago.
Trip to Chicago. We made a lot of trips to Chicago.
When we took the kids.
We got
Oh, when I was president, yeah, incoming president of National Office Products Association, you got to bring your family there to witness the banquet, the installation. So we took all our kids to Chicago,
Bob and Patty and Matt,
and David.
Gwen and David.
He stayed
And
near
Liz.
you or with you.
And I
It was 85, yeah.
took the girls shopping, bought them earrings.
Still have mine.
Neiman Marcus.
In 85? Did you go?
So
So
That was
lucky with
fun.
anyway, it's
somebody.
been a
a
great,
lot of things happen.
Who did you leave him with?
a great life.
I know it wasn't Lola.
But the most important part is family, which is here.
We forgot to mention the boat trip with Chuck and Joyce.
Oh yeah, got involved in young life and made a few trips up to Malibu in Canada. Our first trip, our friends Chuck and Joyce, and Chuck
Sarah.
built a 16-foot open boat with a 35-horse outboard on it. We trailed that up to Vancouver, dumped it in, and took 90 miles up to Malibu in that thing.
That's crazy.
Open water. We were crazy.
Joyce and I sat in the front.
We were pretty good because they would break the waves. We sat in the back. But anyway, we made it. She became queen of Malibu because
I shut the most oysters
Yeah.
down.
whoever did that became queen. That was her. But we had a great time.
Tell us the Billy Graham story.
I'm sorry?
When you
you
had
came-
when you had Billy Graham for dinner.
Oh, that's right.
What? I love the way Joy tells it.
Yeah,
you
I
tell it again.
know.
I like the way Joy tells it.
Yeah.
Let's hear it from Mom.
Well,
Guess who's coming to dinner?
yeah, he called. I usually.
Let me give you a little background.
Okay.
Okay. Well, T.W. Wilson, who was Billy's right-hand man, asked me if I knew of any place where they could go to a Sunday dinner, because every time they go to a restaurant, Billy would get swamped with people wanting to sign his name or have pictures with him or talk to him, whatever. So he never could have a decent meal. He could never get time to eat a meal like that. So he asked me if I knew any place that they could go that would be semi-private.
So he called me up while I was home before I went up to church by myself. And I think he called Bob and Patty
No?
and asked you to come over and help me.
Oh, yeah,
Clean
yeah. I
the
was just
house.
home from Whitworth that weekend. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So you
before we
there
were
'cause of
married.
the
And
crusade.
so
It was before we were
I asked them
You were there for
to
the
clean
crusade.
up the bathroom
that-
and sort of clean up the house. And I had cooked. We always had Bert's dad over for dinner.
On
His
Sundays.
mother had passed away. And so I always had a big Sunday dinner, and that day I had ham and scalloped potatoes. I forget what else. And some kind of a dessert. So I had plenty of food. And we had a big table, about 3 leaves in it. And we all sat around the table. And there was Billy Graham and T.W. Wilson, and Franklin was there too, Franklin Graham. And
Why was Franklin there?
He was going to SPU.
So anyway, after dinner, we went in the living room. The kids cleaned out the kitchen, and we sat around and talked to Billy Graham, and he talked about his dogs, very, very low key. And then when he got in the car for Bert to take him back, he had a tam on and colored glasses, so nobody had seen him. Bert took him back to the hotel.
Anyway, that was just prior to the '74 crusade that we had. And he was kind of out here to inspect the troops and see how it was going, and also renew his relationship with the Jepson family. So it was kind of all worked together. Anyway, in 1986, I sold the business to outfit back east, and we retired at age 60, 60 wasn't it?
65.
62. And fulfilled a lifelong desire to have a boat, a big boat.
Before that, you had an airplane.
Oh yeah, we had an airplane. Well, we had a cabin, we rented a cabin on Lake Chelan for 20 years. And commuting there by car got to be kind of old through Blewett Pass and so forth. So I thought, well, let's get an airplane. And that was cut down. Not really. Anyway, I had a quarter interest in a Cessna. And unfortunately, the other guys didn't fly very much, but they loved to take care of the mechanics. And that was fine with me because all I could do was wash and polish it. I didn't know anything about the rest. Anyway, we flew over there quite a few times, back and forth. That way I
You flew
could
to
work
Spokane
and
a lot
fly.
too, didn't you, when you were on the board there?
I'm sorry?
You flew a lot to Spokane when you were on the board, didn't you?
Right, yeah. I forgot about that.
Meet International.
Right. We, through all of this, I was also got involved in the Board of Whitworth because I was Presbyterian. And kids all went there, all three boys. Except Gwen, she had to go to a sophisticated Midwest school.
I didn't want to be Bob's little sister anymore.
You're always Bob.
And she went to Wheaton
Hit her wool jacket.
for 2 years. And then she came back and went to Seattle Pacific University for 2 years. And then after I got through with Whitworth, I became a board member of Seattle Pacific, trustee. Primarily because my daughter went there. So I'd look after her. Anyway, after retirement, got a boat, did some flying, moved to Camino Island, had a great life. Here we are.
Ta-da!
Yay!
Had a great wife that supported all those crazy things we did.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
What?
Do you have a question?
Sounds
What's
like
a
you have
reporter?
a question. Of course I have a question. So there's this phrase that I've been hearing a lot, and I think it's like a lifelong one, and it's you never know what the good days are until they're past. And I was wondering what you guys think about that.
What was it?
You never know what the good days are until they've passed. You're never aware of when the good days are until they're over. And I was just wondering how you feel about that phrase, and if you agree with that, what were your favorite times? Is that a hard question?
No, but a simple answer is that when you believe in Jesus and he's got a role for you in your life, whatever comes is okay, and he'll take care of you. So whatever circumstance we found ourselves in, okay, Lord, here we go. And if it wasn't the greatest thing or that I wanted to do or whatever, we found out later that was what the Lord's will was for us in our lives. And so, you know,
No, that's a good answer.
basically, being a Christian businessman gave me an opportunity to testify to the business and professional community as I shared earlier. And that brought us into all kinds of interesting opportunities, I call them.
And I went with the flow.
Yeah, they're very supportive.
Raising 4 children.
Yeah, 4 children,
Couple
and
dogs.
great life. Had a lot of fun, didn't we?
Yep.
Didn't have too many problems as far as I can remember.
Mom, which home did you enjoy?
The one on, with the pool.
The one on Sunset?
Yeah,
Sunset,
because you guys had a lot of fun there. Not too far from Elizabeth's house. We lived right around the
Our dog
corner.
used to go down the back trail to meet their dog. So there was something going between the two dogs.
Right.
It got too quiet.
Yeah.
Where are the kiddos?
Where did the children go?
Someone check the shed.
Dog is like in heaven.
It's locked.
And find out what was behind it.
Isn't this the dog that
And
doesn't
Daniel's,
usually like to be held?
Grandma,
Or is it the other
grandpa's
one?
were in
He
West
likes to be
Seattle
held?
also.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
He's the
His
last.
other grandma
melted
still
butter,
lives
he's
there.
just-
Still goes there.
oh wow.
Right.
Still at UPres.
Oh,
No, I'm
okay.
sorry, West Side.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you got married there.
Across the road.
What was the question?
Raise your hand if you got married at West Side Press.
Oh,
You had to go south.
that's right.
That's right.
Anyway, great life. Happy that we had great marriage.
And
What's the-
4 wonderful children and grandchildren and
Great
great grandchildren.
What's the best meal you've ever had?
What?
Best meal you've ever had? Any country, any place. No, you don't say that, mine. Best meal you've ever had? Any country, any time, any place. Doesn't have to be the food, it could be the people.
There were several.
Probably anything that had cake.
Best meal came from Joy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'd answer.
You know, there's always that meal you can think of, like, that was such a good time and it was such good food.
Oh, love crab cakes.
But whose crab cakes and when?
So right
Which
now you're
crab
into
cakes?
lamb, though.
Well, that's because I'm not supposed to eat much fish.
Daisy.
I can have lamb or mutton, sheep, what do you call it? And chicken. Pork and chicken. That's not too bad. Menu. I can live with that. No red meat though. Very little dairy
You turn the water spigot off, right?
for my digestive system. That is,
You know, one of the best meals I can think of is when we caught fresh crab off Camino. You would put them into salads.
yeah.
Oh, those were good.
And then we had raspberries off Joy's vines. This was like heaven.
Or when we had the crabs on Vashon that were baked underneath the seaweed and
Those were
Yeah.
the vanilla
Dark and
clams that were
salmon,
steamed
Clam.
underneath the seaweed with the open salmon.
yeah.
Joy's sister lived on the beach of Vashon, and we'd go over there. We go up to Blake Island and dig clams, have a clam bake. That was fun.
Tell them how you lost Dad on Blake Island.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, you weren't there. So, anyway, Blake Island is about a mile square, something like that. So our young people of West Side, John Kelly was a Sea Scout skipper, and he chartered the Sea Scout boat to take us for a evening on Blake Island, or a day picnic. Went to Blake Island, at the picnic. We decided 2 or 3 of us would cross the island to go see what was on the other side. So we started to cross,
They walking.
yeah,
Yeah.
and found that the island was almost you couldn't cross it that way. You had to go around the beach, but we were going to go straight across. Got lost. It was a cloudy day. We didn't know which direction north was. And then the boat, we didn't show up to return back home. So they started going around the island honking their horn. And we'd hear it over there. Oh, that's where they are. The time we got there, here the hound down here. And then it was over here. And we went crazy trying to find the boat. Crazy. But we finally found them. We ended up in the beach and they found us. Who asked that question? You asked that. Yeah, that was something else. Another experience. Fun times.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
you were in the choir for a long time. Do
Yeah.
you have a favorite hymn or song?
Anything that's Welsh.
Anything?
Plus, well, I don't think Amazing Grace is Welsh, is it? But that's one of my very favorites. And,
Do you know the story of Amazing Grace?
yeah. By a slave trader who became a Christian. In fact, I've got a book on, was given to me on all the famous hymns. And it's amazing the number of hymns that were written during the late 1800s and early 1900s, which we sing today, the traditional hymns. It's a great experience to get the history of why they wrote what they did. Great book. It's called Amazing Grace. The book is. So it was fun.
Well, what are you going to do for the next 70 years?
Yeah.
It would be fun to see 100 come by, but I don't know if we'll make it. We'll see. With heart attacks, we.
Gotta live to be 120 something.
Huh?
I
Yeah.
said.
Nobody wants to get that old.
Nobody wants to get that old.
Right. I don't recommend it. Both knees and hip problems.
But did your dad
They're
say?
tough.
I said he could if he took his shoes off.
You have a toy upstairs.
He's so cute.
So what does he want?
I think he's using gold
Thanks
glitter.
for sharing all of that.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here.
What's the best trip you ever took?
The best
Or
trip.
which trip do you really remember the
When you
most
got
fondly?
drugged at Sardinia.
What?
I like
You
the
got
one in
drugged
South
in
America.
Sardinia.
South
Or was it
America.
Jim Gwynn that got drugged? Took those sleeping pills?
That was me. Yeah, that was a steel case trip to, Sardinia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got drugged?
Well, I took sleeping pills so I could sleep on the plane,
Oh.
and I shouldn't have done that.
No, no.
Because I got there and I was still groggy. Really groggy. Took too many. I guess I took 2 instead of 1.
And he looked like he was a little drunk. And some of the salesmen were on the bus thinking their boss was drunk.
Be careful with
You wanna
sleeping
pet the
pills.
dog? You can pet the dog.
Shoes on, but come outside again.
One of the things he forgot to mention is Bob, I don't know how old Bob was, but anyway, General Eisenhower was running for president, and he flew into Seattle, and I wanted to see him, so we went down to 4th Avenue where the cavalcade came through and parked at the XXX, and I was pregnant with Gwen, and when Eisenhower came by, I held Bob up, I remember,
I was 1.
so he could see the president, and I said, if one's a boy, I'm going to name him Ike.
I'm glad it was a
Dwight Eisenhower Howell. And I was born the day he was inaugurated here. He was voted in November 6th.
I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike. Ike for
And you were so
president.
glad to be a girl.
Yeah.
I think that was my father's idea that he should be named Ike. He thought that'd be kind of cute.
Really cute, huh?
Maybe we'll just call you Ike for short anyway.
Yeah.
I like Ike.
Right.
Where were you during World War II?
I'm sorry?
World War II. You said you served in World War II?
Yeah, I was in cadet training and fought the Battle of Texas and Arizona and New Mexico and training. and they anticipated a lot more losses in taking Italy and North Africa than they sustained. And there was about 10,000 of us all had birthdays in March and April. That was a great event because during those 2 months we got a lot of cakes and cookies. So, but in the barracks, you know. So, but I was in Amarillo the most, Texas, and then was transferred to Yuma, Arizona. We worked on the line, and in Deming, New Mexico, we were in a bombardier and navigating preliminary. And you'd go through that, and if you made the cut, you'd go on to final, the main training of that. And I was high in navigation and pilot and low in bombardier, but I was qualified for all three.
Is it true you memorized the eye test chart?
Yeah, well, to get in there, you had to, in the beginning, I had a problem with astigmatism and a little bit of fuzziness in my left eye. And so I was lined up to take the eye test. That was very critical in flying an airplane. So I memorized, the guy ahead of me went through it, and as he finished, I memorized what he would said, and then passed it with flying colors.
Oh no.
So I always had a big yen for flying. That's why when I got to a place where, well, that was another thing that I sat next to a retired Boeing test pilot who was had a Cessna dealership on Boeing Field, and I sat next to him. I said, "Elliot, which is best? You like to fly the best, a high wing or a low wing private airplane?" He said, "Well, go on down to Boeing Field and I'll demonstrate it to you." So I met him for lunch. We went flying. It was a high wing. Eventually, I bought a quarter interest. You saw the picture of the.
And he landed on Mount Rainier at one time. Elliot Mitchell.
He just touched down. He didn't stay there.
No,
But he did create emergency airstrips in Easton and in Blewett Pass area, as well as what's the other pass? My head's not working.
Snoqualmie.
No, the other
Stevens.
Stevens Pass.
I agree.
For private aircraft that get. In fact, on one trip back from Whitworth, I hit icing. I came in early because I had a 10 o'clock appointment back in Seattle, so I left about 8 o'clock. Coming back, and because nobody had gone through the pass, there's no report on weather through the Snoqualmie Pass. I got up to Ellensburg, and the wind was blowing so hard I'd look down to see, but I kept staying on the same spot because they had 80, 90 knot winds blowing through there. So eventually I got down to below it, got up to the pass, and it was raining and hailing, and it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was so dark that the highway, all the cars had their headlights on. It was so dark, and I could follow the headlights around Snoqualmie Pass back to King County Airport at Boeing Field. Another great experience.
After it was over.
I by myself that time.
Then we took Matt and David on a trip.
Oh yeah, because of NOPA, the executive committee had a meeting in Carmel. That was our first experience there. So we thought it'd be fun to fly down there, which we started, and we had lunch in Bedford. And then we were flying on. I had to get clearance to go over Oakland because of all the air traffic through there, Oakland and San Francisco. And I called to get clearance from the FAA, and it was dead. I thought, oh, my batteries have died. and or rather my radios have died. I didn't realize what was going on. So I paid Matt and Dave a quarter to find every landing strip they could see in case we had to land emergency. Got down to
That's how much our lives
Watson. Got to Watsonville, and the fog kept coming in, and it would go back and forth and cover the airstrip there. So it receded, saw the strip. I don't know which one you saw it. Anyway, we circled back down. We were flying about 8,000 feet. Landed. I went in to close my flight plan, and there was an instructor there with another student, and he said, "I'm going back to Salinas, and they can check your plane." So I said, "Fine, I'll follow you back." I went out, and of course it was dead and no battery. So I had to hand prop this plane, and she was on the brakes with the throttle to start it. Hand propping, and it was a big engine.
With my two boys in the back.
C-180 to get it started. Finally got it started. By the time I got going, he had already gone up and had disappeared in a partly cloudy area. Nothing worked. No battery and no radio or anything. So we figured that there must be I-5 going along there. So we followed that down. Finally we saw Salinas. And they
Thank you, Lord.
gave me the green light blinking that I was clear to land. We landed, and we found that the bracket holding the alternator, which would supply the power to the batteries, had broken. So the belt running that had kept, all it did was slip, and we ran out of juice. So they got that, they welded it, got fixed, went on down to Bisdenying, had a great trip.
I was like in middle school, I think.
Huh?
6th, 7th grade?
Oh, I don't think you were that old. I thought you were younger.
Yeah, for a quarter.
Yeah.
5th, 6th grade.
Now you'd want more, I know. Yeah.
I've
They
always
were
wanted to
very
go to
calm.
Salinas, and now I remember I have been there. I didn't know that. Steinbeck's.
So, anyway,
That's great.
story of our life.
We took Matt
near
and
the
Dave
product
over to Hawaii, and the first day almost they got burned up.
Oh
Turned to
no.
a crisp. The sun is so much stronger there.
Yeah. Got a picture of him, bright red.
Anyway, we had a great life. I think I had 11 different portions in that rate.
Oh man.
We kept getting better and better.
Yeah.
And the problem is that I could sell them for what I paid for them, plus the sales tax. That's what it cost me. Same thing on boats.
Same thing on houses.
Ride the wave.
Right.
Make the deal.
Oh, that was it. Always
Make a
had
good
to
deal.
find a deal. It was fun. That was a challenge. The business kind of supported all that, more or less. I never made as much money as most of my fellow dealers, but we had, I think, more fun.
So it was okay.
Yeah.
It was good. The Lord really blesses. We give him the credit, glory. And here you are.
Amen, brother.
Any more questions?
That's what you in the doxology.
Yeah.
Don't think I gave you the answer that would be
better.
exciting. But it was good.